Hey guys, it's Tuesday, Bible, Acts. It's a little bit of 20 and 21, even though it's just listed as 21, I think, on the homework website. But first of all, as we're going, I was talking about the relentlessness of Paul. And if you go to 2 Corinthians 12, verse 7 through 10, I want you to read about, just quickly, a couple verses about how Paul talks about how he has a thorn. And we don't know what it is. Is he blinded? Is he deaf? Is he got a bad leg or a foot or whatever it is? Maybe he's got a sickness. And he prays to God 3 times for God to take it away over the course of the time. And God doesn't. And he talks about that being a rejoicing within suffering. Why don't you pause this video and look that up, 2 Corinthians 12 verses 7 through 10. I don't know if many of us would rejoice in suffering, but that's just Paul. He's like, hey, God sent that to me. Maybe it's something that motivates me to keep going. People use that kind of thing. All right. Now, when we talk about leaving Ephesus, which is what happened in the last reading, he was meeting with the elders from Ephesus in Miletus. And then he takes off to Kos, Rhodes, Patara, the Colossus of Rhodes, if you haven't looked that up. Pause and look that up. That's pretty cool. Patara. And then to the south of Cyprus, he goes to Tyre, Ptolemais, Caesarea, Jerusalem, back to Caesarea. Okay? Now, when he goes through those, when he gets to Tyre, and this area here is called Phoenicia. When you see that word, you know what that means. It's this area here. He has brothers or disciples that he runs into there because Christianity's been spreading. And he stays with them for about 7 days. He's getting kind of nervous. He wants to get to Jerusalem before Pentecost. I mean, he's going to get there maybe just maybe a day or two ahead. And in Tyre, the people there tell him, don't go on. You're going to have problems. And he's like, I got to keep going. The Spirit's telling me to go. And they're like, the Spirit's telling us that you're going to have trouble. But the Spirit didn't tell them to tell Paul not to continue. I'm not quite sure how all that worked together, but Paul is very determined to continue. Okay? And then from there, he spent there 7 days. He spends just a day in Ptolemais. So he gets on a ship and kind of bumps out to sea and comes back in again. And then there's brothers there that he stays with. Then he goes to Caesarea. Caesarea would have been the capital of the area there by the Romans. Much more so now than the capital being Jerusalem, because it's on the coast and the Romans do a lot of trading on the coast. And then when he's in Caesarea, he meets up with Philip. Philip, we learned about before, was early in Acts. He was one of the first guys to go out and spread the gospel to whomever, like the Samaritans, those hated Samaritans, and then the Ethiopian eunuch. And then by this time, he's got 4 daughters. Philip is called an evangelist. That means going out and spreading the word. His daughters are called, each are a prophetess, so a prophet woman. They're sort of dedicated to the church, probably not married, just, they're in it with pops. They're just all out for the Lord. And that's cool to see. And then there's a guy that shows up who's a prophet named Agabus. And we know he's a legitimate prophet too. And in good Jewish form, he takes Paul's belt from him. What I mean by Jewish form is showing a visual. So he wraps up himself somehow with Paul's belt and says, the owner of this belt, this will happen to him. Well, in a fancy way, he's saying, Paul, you're going to get bound up, thrown in prison. And that's eventually what happens. But Paul's like, yeah, but I'm going to keep going. So they're like pleading with him, no, but then they kind of get to the point where they say, well, let's just let the Lord's will happen. Finally, he gets up to Jerusalem. He stays at a guy's house named Manason, who's from Cyprus. And when he gets there just before Pentecost. And it says that the brothers received them well. He probably gave them right away the big offering that he had collected from the Corinthians and Ephesians, those much more wealthier places, because we know that in Jerusalem at the time and in Judea, the surrounding area, there was a real famine. and the Christians there were really down and out. So it was really cool that the Gentiles could help out the Jewish Christians back in Jerusalem with money. It's really the first time we see what you consider a missionary raising funds and bringing it to those in need. I'm going to pause right here and then make a second video, otherwise it's going to get too long.